So devoted my second book to this topic, and it's Smooth Sailing into Retirement. And this is focused on your last few months at work and your first year or so of retirement, because a lot changes. Practically everything changes. You know, when you're at work, you pass people in the hall every day, and you may not even have conversations with them, but you're surrounded by people.
I share my story wherein we decided to retire a couple of years ago, and then after we retired, we quickly came back from retirement to working actively again. One of the main reasons for that is the only passion I had was to work.
One of my initial hopes for this book is that younger people, maybe still in their 50s and 40s, would start thinking about, okay, it may be 10 or 20 years away, but what am I going to do when I retire? And for a personal example, I'm a musician. My primary instrument is trombone. I also play the steel pan and the electric bass.
Yes, so Dave, I enjoyed every single sentence of what you said, wherein we have to prepare for it so that we know where we are going. Otherwise, life is going to just drift away. And especially retirement is going to be so disappointing time for you, wherein you feel worthless.
Some other criteria. But okay, you've achieved that. You moved to the state where there's no income tax. Are you any happier?
Yeah.
Because and let me tell you, the state is getting that money one way or another. If it's not the income taxes, it's the property taxes or some other kind of tax.
Types of factors.
So,
and also when I talk about friendships and the relationships that you build when you retire, could be totally different from what you're used to in the professional life. And it was surprising for me that I was able to build terrific relationships by joining clubs like Toastmasters. All right, welcome back. I have Dave Hughes again, the author of 3 books and the website owner of retirefabulously.com. Check out the first episode where we talked about how to come up with a number for your retirement. So in this episode, what we want to talk about is exactly how you plan your retirement and which areas to actually consider retiring and how retirement is going to change. So there is a lot of information. If you have not subscribed to our channel, be sure to subscribe for it, because you as an audience, you might not care if you subscribe or not, but for the content creator, it adds a lot of value. Dave, I want you to start with telling me how to sail through the retirement. What's the initial days of it, and also how people can choose different areas of where to retire.
Okay. Thank you. So I devoted my second book to this topic, and it's Smooth Sailing into Retirement. And this is focused on your last few months at work and your first year or so of retirement, because a lot changes. Practically everything changes. You know, when you're at work, you pass people in the hall every day, and you may not even have conversations with them, but you're surrounded by people. You have human contact. Suddenly, when you retire, any human contact you have to create it.
Wow.
And you might think, oh, all my friends at work, we'll stay in touch. And at the retirement party, they say, oh yeah, we'll stay in touch and all that stuff. It drops off quickly. I have 5 really good friends from Intel that I'm still in touch with to this day. And actually, I can add 6 now since we've reconnected, so that's good. But a lot of the other friendships, suddenly out of sight, out of mind. They fall away quickly. So there's that. Suddenly, if your spouse is retiring too, or if he or she is already at home, now you two are together 24 hours a day. That creates stress. One of my neighbors, she actually told her husband to go back out and get a job because she was tired of having him around the house 24 hours a day. So you have to deal with changing relationship with your spouse. Your relationship with money will change in most cases. You won't have quite as much of it as you used to. When you're earning a big fat salary, it's easy to push your cart through Costco and go, oh, that looks cool, throw it in the cart. And you have to pull back on that a little bit, or at least we did. So your relationship with money changes. And same thing with fitness and exercise. Everything in your life changes. And you have to be able to see that coming Plan for it and decide what you're going to do to still have human contact, to still get out of the house, to still get enough exercise, and do the things you're passionate about. And if you're don't know what you're passionate about, this Design Your Dream Retirement might help you. But so many things change all at once, and change is stressful even when it's a positive change. So like I say, so many things change at one time.
For us, I share my story wherein we decided to retire a couple of years ago, and then after we retired, we quickly came back from retirement to working actively again. One of the main reasons for that is the only passion I had was to work, and I really did not build any other passion. And I always thought I'll start to pick some other thing when I have time. But it doesn't work that way. When I was free, I was actually going insane, Dave, rather than trying to pick different passions. And so it's always good as a human being. First of all, we have to thrive and find things that are going to bring us joy, right? Joy and happiness is something that we have to cultivate even before you retire, to see what makes you really happy. If it is work, then so be it.
Right. And that is an issue with many professionals in well-educated industries like high tech or finance or engineering firms or whatever. People are very career driven, and their identity is wrapped up in their job title.
Yeah.
And aside from maybe raising children or whatever, they are what their job title is. So once you retire, what are you going to say? You meet somebody at a party and they say, well, what do you do?
I used to work at Intel.
Yes. I'm a retired software engineer, or I'm retired, or whatever. I encourage people to come up with your own new job title. For example, I am a musician and an author. I don't tell people I'm a retired software engineer. I tell them I'm a musician and an author, or an artist, or a woodworker, or whatever it is that you decide to do. And so you need to have a new identity for your life. I have a graphic that I use in one of my articles. It's a guy in a business suit. He's holding a business card in front of him, but that business card's completely white. Like, what do you put on that now? Who are you?
That's great. Even when I retired that time, I started going to Toastmasters because I enjoy speaking and networking. Leadership is what I really thrive in, those kind of environments. So I became a keynote speaker. I became a paid speaker. And that was a terrific title to have. I don't have to say I'm ex-Intel or I'm ex-this, ex-that. What am I right now is what our identity is. You just talked about what you're good at and what you are okay to do, even nobody is going to pay for it, is something that you really want to do. And then to add the second and third dimension to it, what is it something that the world really needs and cares for, right? Just because I clean cobwebs and I enjoy doing it is not a good identity to have for myself for too long. You see, for some time my spouse might be happy that I'm keeping the house clean, but it's going to go only so far. So it's very important for you to start building and working on your passion, because that passion should be something that the world can get inspiration from. Or the way you should think about it is, somebody would pay to see you do that. Like if you're a musician, people are going to pay for a concert ticket to come and watch you play.
If I write books, people will buy them.
Exactly. So you need to get to that kind of a craft at that age, because if you, as a full-grown human being, have crossed 50 years, you have so much of experiences, and every human being has a unique story to tell, and they have a unique art that they should have perfected. If you have not, it's never too late. You pick it up from where you are and try to work on it.
Right. And, this actually brings me to a point I really want to make, and that is, a lot of people wait until they retire, or maybe 1 or 2 years before they retire, to even start to think about what they want to do. One of my initial hopes for this book is that younger people, maybe still in their 50s and 40s, would start thinking about, okay, it may be 10 or 20 years away, but what am I going to do when I retire? And for a personal example, I'm a musician. My primary instrument is trombone. I also play the steel pan and the electric bass, not all at the same time. But anyway, now that I'm retired, I'm in 5 bands. But throughout my working career, I was in one band. It rehearsed Thursday night, occasionally gave concerts, but that kept up my trombone playing skills so that when I retired, I was ready to go. So that's why I really encourage people to think. And a lot of people decide, or they want to start a consulting business, which actually is something I decided I would do. But if you're smart, you will start setting those wheels in motion 5 to 10 years before you retire, building up your network, doing the groundwork, creating whatever product you're going to deliver, so that when you retire, your consulting business is up and running. In that regard, I waited until I retired to get started with that. I decided, like you, I'm a public speaker, and I put together a 1-hour-long workshop that covers many of these topics. And I thought people should beat a path to the door for this. Corporations will hire me all over the place to come in and present these workshops. And I had a very rude awakening. The world was not beating a path to my door, and I had a lot to learn about marketing. If I had started 10 years earlier, I could have all that stuff built up and in place. So, and again, yet another reason to really visualize what you want to do when you retire, both so you know what you'll do and so you know how much money you have to save for it.
Yes. So Dave, I enjoyed every single sentence of what you said, wherein we have to prepare for it so that we know where we are going. Otherwise, life is going to just drift away. And especially retirement is going to be so disappointing time for you, wherein you feel worthless. And it's very important to feel very worthy of our time, experience, and identity. Let's switch gears. Let's talk about different areas of the country or the world.
Yes.
To retire. Like, how did you come up with, okay, I'm going to retire in Arizona itself?
Right. That's actually a good topic. And a lot of people make assumptions and they don't really think about it. They think either, if they live someplace farther north where it's cold, I'll retire to Florida, or I'll retire to Arizona, or some other sunny, warm state. Or sometimes their decision is driven by, I live in New York City, it's expensive, where can I live that's cheaper? But what I have found is that those initial criteria don't necessarily mean that you will be happy in the place where you end up. And so, again, I will shamelessly plug my third book, The Quest for Retirement Utopia, How to Find the Retirement Spot That's Right for You. And the point to the title is that your ideal retirement spot is much different than mine. Everybody will have their own most ideal place. There is no perfect place, but you can get pretty darn good if you look at it. And this book will guide you through a series of questions and considerations to think about when you're thinking about where you want to retire. There's a section when you finally go to the place you're thinking about retiring, what to look for when you visit. Does the community have this? Does the community not have that? Those sorts of issues. So there are many things, most of which aren't directly involved with money. A lot of people think, I want to live someplace where it's cheaper to live. I want to live in a state where there's no income tax, or some other criteria. But okay, you've achieved that. You moved to the state where there's no income tax. Are you any happier?
Yeah.
Because and let me tell you, the state is getting that money one way or another. If it's not the income taxes, it's the property taxes or some other kind of taxes. So, those, some of the factors that people think are so important really aren't important in terms of having a happy, successful retirement. So I encourage people instead, and it tags along my other books, again, once you know the things you want to do, the amenities, then certain areas will rise to the surface. For example, if you're an avid hiker, you want to live someplace where there are plenty of hiking trails nearby. I'm a jazz musician. Phoenix has an excellent jazz community. I was just in the Nash Jazz Club last night. The community colleges all have great jazz ensembles I can play in, and all the nationally known artists that I like come through town on their concert tours. So for me, living in a place where I can both listen to and perform jazz is very important. If I moved to a small town in the Midwest that's very inexpensive to live, I wouldn't have that. So those kinds of factors, this book helps you clarify those types of factors.
And also when I talk about friendships and the relationships that you build when you retire,
Mm-hmm.
could be totally different from what you're used to in the professional life.
Mm-hmm.
And it was surprising for me that I was able to build terrific relationships by joining clubs like Toastmasters, wherein you have a lot of common interests, even though the background is different. They were maybe an attorney, where I was into software and I was a business owner. Still, the common interests are going to bring people. And I feel, Dave, it's the best time for a humanity to interact and network with people who are like-minded for whatever it is. Like the best time, because you are able to connect with people at multiple levels. If you are into hiking, you have this specific hiking group that likes to hike a particular mountain. We never had that kind of networking ability 10 years ago. Now you can get onto Facebook or Meetup and you can find it. Like if you want to have a jazz musicians group who are at the same level as me, you probably can get it right
yes,
away.
either join one or form one. Yes.
Yes. And so this is the best time for everybody. The action item for myself and for everybody is trying to find your passion and then see which areas of the country are better, or the world even. You can retire, let's say, I mean, I've heard people retiring in Italy, things like that.
Right. And let's talk about that for a moment, because a lot of people, in fact, I'm seeing a rising interest level in people who are looking to retire outside the United States. And generally, they're driven by either of two things. Well, maybe three. One is like retiring to Italy. We took vacations to Italy. It's so beautiful. Oh, I could live here. Or Hawaii or something like that. So they kind of have a romanticized vision of what this beautiful place is going to be where they could live. The second is they're looking for a place that is less expensive to live, depending on how much money is a concern for you. The third one that has emerged over the last 8 years or so, unfortunately, is people don't like the way the direction the country's heading. And not to get into which side is right or wrong, but you have to admit these are contentious times. And depending on your views, some governments are doing pretty outrageous things. A lot of people don't like the direction this country's heading, and they want to get out for that reason. So, so those are three reasons. But then we get back to, well, okay, so where? And then you start getting considerations as not only how much does it cost to live there, but how much local tax am I going to have to pay? Because in many European countries, they have fantastic healthcare, fantastic social services and all that. People pay 40% income tax. So you have to weigh that out. If you plan to return back to the US to visit your family every so often, how much is a plane flight? There are a number of other hidden costs besides, oh, I can rent an apartment for just $800 a month. There's a lot more to it than that, and there's a lot of articles on the internet, so-and-so retired to Seville, Spain on just her Social Security check. Well, okay, she did, but she's living in a cheap little apartment in a not-so-nice section of town. So, there's a lot of considerations. Another one, and I'll just touch on this quickly, is culture shock. In different parts of the world, it's different. People treat those of other religions, women, gays and lesbians, whatever, differently in different parts of the world. This should come as no surprise. But even social customs, there's a lot of difference, and a lot of expats experience culture shock. So I have a section in the book on that. This book is probably about 2/3 retiring in the US and maybe 1/3 of retiring overseas.
That's interesting. I'm going to just add it. It's a normal human mentality for people to just put you in a bucket and treat you differently. So me coming from India, even I came here 20 years ago. Now I go back, I see and experience culture shock because the cultures have also transitioned. Just because you're from Italy or from India, you thinking that you're going to go back and live happily ever after is not going to happen. So you should also factor that in.
Absolutely. And there are two important takeaways I want to make here. One is that when you go live in a foreign country, you shouldn't expect it to be the US light. In other words, a mini version of the US that's cheaper. I can still go down to a Costco, I can still, shop at a gourmet grocery store, stuff like that. A lot of that is different. And so if the more people are willing to learn about the culture they're moving into, adapt themselves to that culture, and make some trade-offs in terms of, okay, well, I have to give these things up, but these things are so good. The more you adapt to your new country, the happier you'll be. If you're expecting it's going to be just like the US when you get there, you're in for a rude shock. The second takeaway is it's rarely a good idea to retire to the place that was your favorite place to go on vacation.
Why is that?
Well, because when you're on vacation, you're not doing your regular day-to-day things. You're going to lie at the beach or play golf or climb a mountain or see museums or whatever it is you do when you go on vacation. But you're not going to do that. If you got a house near the beach in Hawaii, are you really going to go out to the beach every day?
Right.
No, the ocean's there. You can go anytime. Suddenly it's not special anymore. And speaking of Hawaii, because that's often one people think of, one time when I was visiting Hawaii, I was on a tour bus. It was a cruise. It stopped at several different islands. And the tour guides on two different islands told us exactly the same thing. People move to Hawaii from the mainland because they think, oh, I always loved going on vacation here. It's so beautiful and all that. They last 6 months and they move back.
Yeah.
Because except in Honolulu itself, everywhere else throughout the islands, everything kind of shuts down at 5 o'clock. There's not that much to do. And of course, you're now a 6 or 7 hour flight away from the rest of your family, and everything is expensive, and you're not going to the beach every day. So there are lots of stories of people who move to their vacation spot, and 6 months or a year later, they move back.
That's great. Dave, you joining the podcast is going to be excellent fit with the theme that we have. We call ourselves why seekers. We are trying to seek what's the wealth, health, and yourself. We are trying to rediscover, and retirement is a big part of why we want to seek ourselves, especially later on in our life. So thank you so much for your time. I'm
You're
looking
welcome.
forward to doing one more with you and want to get an update on how you managed to write so many books. You got 3, and I've attended your book release party not too long ago.
Yes, I'm now writing novels. I have 3 novels already published and 3 that are in various stages of work in progress. So between being a musician and being an author, my retirement is full and happy. So
that's great. So wait for that episode where we are going to pick Dave's mind on how to become an author and share your experiences with what you're going through, plus how to become a novel writer. I've never thought of writing a novel, so we are going to talk about that. Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.